Welcome to the Next Level Law Podcast, where we explore innovative strategies to grow and scale your law firm in today's competitive legal landscape. Joining you each week are veterans in the legal space and law firm growth experts Arash Eskandari and Richard Perillo, coming to you with over 18 years of combined experience, successfully transforming legal practices. Our hosts are passionate about helping law firm owners take their business to the next level. If you want to exponentially increase your client base, revenue, efficiency, and profitability, you're in the right place. Stick around as your hosts dive into actionable insights and proven methods tailored specifically to help your law firm ascend to new heights. Time to get down to business.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Next Level Law Podcast. We're joined today by attorney Patrick Garrity out of Massachusetts. He primarily focuses on criminal cases. We're very grateful to have him joining us today on the pod. Today's pod is sponsored by Vertical 10. Vertical 10 provides full-service digital marketing solutions exclusively designed for law firms coast to coast, specializing in SEO, Facebook, and Google direct marketing. Patrick, thank you for hopping on with us today. How is everything going?
Good. I'm very, very happy to be here. This is my first podcast interview. I've done a few with, news outlets, but this is an interesting media that I've never ventured into. So I appreciate you having me check it out.
No, definitely. We like to start off, and everybody we speak to and, has an incredible story, great background. And you and I have spoke briefly before, and not to put the cart before the horse, but I'd really like to start off today with you, kind of outlining and telling a little bit of your story about the how and the why you decided to choose this profession, and then drilling down a little bit more, on the criminal side, what was the motivation there? So if you could kind of maybe walk us through for a few minutes of what that motivation was, getting into the legal profession, and then representing the rights of accused as their criminal attorney.
Yeah. So just for the listeners too, I'm not sure how much you guys know about the background, but Rich gave me a call and I got ahead of myself and started giving him a little bit of a brief synopsis of my reasonings. And he cut me off. He's like, I want to learn with the listeners. So you don't know that much. I don't really know where to start. I grew up, I'm from New Hampshire, Southern New Hampshire. My father is a criminal defense attorney out of New Hampshire, and as well as he does federal work in New Hampshire, in Massachusetts, primarily Boston. I had zero interest in pursuing a law degree or anything to do with law up until I was about 24 years old. Prior to that, I went to undergrad at Northeastern, and I thought I wanted to do med school until about my so Northeastern's a 5-year program. My 4th year there, I realized I hate this stuff. I don't want to do it. And so I was kind of at a loss. I had been bartending throughout undergrad. Again, no real background with law. Didn't really get in any trouble or anything. And then I moved to Hawaii with my ex-girlfriend in 2019. When did COVID hit? Toward the end of 2019, early 2020. I was 24 years old. And I had told myself, all right, I'll go to Hawaii, I'll come back after a year and figure out what I want to do. I knew I wanted to pursue some professional career or degree or something like that, but I didn't have a real objective, right? And then in March of 2020, I woke up in a jail cell. I got arrested. Was down in Hawaii. I was scared shitless. I had no real, as a kid, I did stupid stuff like Ding Dong Ditch and stuff that you do when you're kind of a teenager. I wasn't a total stranger to dealing with police, but I was definitely a total stranger to being arrested, booked, arraigned, and all that. I had no clue how the process goes. I was at a complete loss, and I felt completely weak in the sense that I didn't know how to handle anything. And I was in Hawaii, no family there. I had no connections to Hawaii. I don't know why we really went there. We just did. And so nobody knew I was in the jail cell. Nobody. And I fought like hell to get a phone call. And there's a story behind that. I had to basically, quickly, I had to trick a nurse who was bringing around, I think like, Aleve or aspirin or ibuprofen, that type of stuff to the other inmates. And I had a jail cell named, his name was Rocky. I read his charge sheets because I was bored and I had nothing else to do, so I read it. It actually said Rocky, so you're telling the truth in that one. Hawaii has a huge meth problem.
Okay.
He was going through withdrawals. So the nurse came around every so often and gave him his medicine, his pain medicine. I had used my one phone call, and that's a real thing. You get one phone call, calling my mom, and my mom I love my mom. She is the worst person you could use your one phone call on because she's not going to pick up. She's terrible with it. With or without the time change between Hawaii and Massachusetts, or New Hampshire. So I was screwed. I was like, what am I going to do? I had seen the nurse by that time, maybe 2 or 3 times. And she had seen me, and I'll get into this more later, but I stood out, just to put it bluntly. I was surrounded by, I am for those, there's a podcast, can't really see me, I am a white male. A lot of the other people in my unit, weren't that. They were minorities. They were worse off. I was relatively healthy looking. Everyone else was not. There was varying degrees of disabled, and that there's a whole lot I could go on with that, in terms of who gets put in these cells and everything like that, who gets charged with crimes. And and the nurse was also white. She resembled kind of my grandmother. So I don't know if she kind of played out that, because she definitely was supposed to do it, but she gave me her cell phone. And she held me out, and I saw how she was to all the other inmates. She was not like that with any of the other ones, for better or for worse. And I used her cell phone to get a hold of my dad. And that's eventually how I got released. That was the beginning of the end type deal, or the beginning of the end. There was a long process beyond that. My dad got me an attorney, Alan Kaneshiro, out in Hawaii, who I now came to find out was he's like a big dog out there, to put it that type of way. So I was extremely fortunate in the resources I got. And I know that because the day I went to go get arraigned, right? I have no priors. There was another guy in the court holding cell. Every court has them. They kind of underneath. They kept away from the public. There's another guy charged with the exact same crime I was. Exact same. Facts were a little different, but the exact same on paper. He had no priors as well. He did not have the resources to get a private attorney. And this isn't me knocking public defenders or anything. I complete opposite. But I was fortunate that I was able to have the resources to get a private attorney who would dedicate a little bit more time. And at arraignment, that's extremely important. I see that more now doing it myself. But I think I got like a $1,000 bail, and they have bail bondsmen out in Hawaii. They don't have that in Massachusetts. And that helped a lot. That meant I was getting out that day. The guy who had the same charge as me, he didn't. He had I think a $15,000 bail or something like that. And he was sent to the correctional facility. I watched him get screwed up, and he had kids and everything, and that kind of shell shock. I think about that even now. My girlfriend has definitely heard that story more times than she would like. Because it just stuck out to me that people, for better or for worse, and I know I'm in this industry and I do a lot of private cases, so I'm not helping it at all, but there is a degree of quote unquote better help you get when you can pay for it. And I tell clients all the time, you're not paying for experience. I'll get into this too. I don't have a long experience. I have like a year and a half tops. I just graduated in May, but I did a whole year of clinic at my school. So I went to Suffolk Law School, and I've been doing it since. But you're not paying for experience. You're paying for time. And public defenders this is true in Massachusetts, and I'm going to go ahead and assume it's true in every state, because to my knowledge it is. Public defenders are overworked and underpaid. They're spread so thin, and they care a lot about their clients, but there's only so much they can do. Getting to a jail and meet your client takes time. Getting your client into programs, calling around to see if there's availability for the programs, getting a bed at a shelter, all this stuff in between takes time. And if you're giving a public defender with limited resources, in terms of, they're dealing with clients who don't have a lot of money, so they got to get funding from the state, and that takes time. I could go on a whole other side rant about that too. But they can only do so much in one day. And that's putting aside, they're going to trials, getting ready for trials. They have families of their own, a lot of them. They're trying to do all this other stuff, but they can't really dedicate that much time to a single client, whereas I can. I'm a private practice. I work for an attorney, Brad Bailey, out of Boston, and he's very well known. To be honest with you, I was shocked I got the job. He was looking for a person with at least 2 years experience, and I finagled my way in there. I don't know how I did it, but I love it. But I say all that to say that I'm getting lost in my train of thought here, but he does a lot of private cases, and he dedicates a lot of time to those cases because he can. But he works 7 days a week. So I got arrested, I got arraigned, and that lit a fire under my ass. I saw that firsthand, that who your attorney is goes a long way. I had a great attorney, like I said, Alan Conachero. He dedicated a ton of time. I'm sure I was a pain in his ass at the beginning, because I was. I see it now with my own clients. People freak out when they're charged, no matter how small or how big it is. And that's just because they don't know what they don't know. They're stuck, and they have zero control over the process. They don't know when stuff's going to happen. We don't know when stuff's going to happen. We can have an idea, but we, as an attorney, we don't know a lot of stuff. We're finding out as much as we can, as soon as we can, but sometimes it's just not there. It's a waiting game. So I saw firsthand that without my attorney and without my dad, I would have been screwed. I ended up getting a deal where I was sentenced to 4 years probation. I'm still serving it. It ends in January 5th, 2025. And I'm going to throw a parade on that day. But that kind of really, really got me into the world of law. I became enthralled with it. I wanted to find out as much as possible because I didn't want to be put in a position again where I didn't know. I'm not saying I know everything now. I don't. I definitely do not. But I know far more than I did in March 2020. And that kind of is my whole goal of all this. I want to understand the process better, the procedures, so that I can help people who find themselves in similar situations. That's part of the reason I agreed to do this podcast. To be honest with you, this is the first time I've publicly spoken about my arrest and all that stuff. Not that I've ever hidden it. My colleagues at school knew it. My colleagues now know it. All my bosses have known it. Obviously, the state of Massachusetts knows it. I'm applying to New Hampshire. They know it. I've never really hidden it because I kind of selfishly derive off it. I was told when I was charged, when I was arrested and arraigned and all that stuff, that I would not be able to become a lawyer. I went through all law school not thinking I was going to be barred. I spoke to, quote unquote, the people you're supposed to talk to, the big names, in terms of trying to figure out how the process looks for someone like me, actively on probation. No one knew the answer. It was like dealing with the Illuminati. Nobody could tell me how I was going to go. I went through law school not thinking I was going to be an attorney. And I wanted it so badly. A lot of my friends went to law school because they just figured they could keep going to law school. They didn't know what they wanted to do. A lot of my friends who are working still don't know what they want to do. I went to law school knowing full well that I want to do criminal law, criminal defense specifically. But I also went to law school not knowing if that was ever going to happen. I passed the bar, and I had to appear in front of the entire, what's called here is a board of bar examiners. They're like the overseers. They're basically the gatekeepers to see if you're going to be allowed to go in. And I made my case, and I basically gave more of a sermon than I did an argument trying to get in. And obviously it worked, but to my knowledge, I am the first attorney, and you can quote me, don't quote me. I only have this from one person. There's not that many records on it. I was told I'm the first attorney in about 70 years to be admitted to Massachusetts while on active probation. Massachusetts kind of prides itself on that, like, they won't bar you if you have a criminal history or anything like that. But I was an enigma to a lot of people because this isn't in my past. This is currently happening. I still go to probation check-ins. I go to drug alcohol tests, random screenings. I have gone to court a couple times where I've had to flash my bar card to go through security, and I have to go into courtroom 1 for a hearing, and then I go next door to the probation department to check in. I do I do both. And the board of bar examiners in Massachusetts didn't really know how to handle it. Luckily, there's one guy on there. It's all public. His name's Matthew Welnicki. He was extremely open to discussing it with me. Obviously, it was in front of everybody, but he was the questioner. And I got lucky in a lot of the senses. So that's a roundabout way of me saying why I got into law. I kind of breezed past a lot of the stuff. I could talk to you off about the ins and outs of someone being on probation, because it's not fair. I can talk about setting bail for someone, at least in Massachusetts. That's definitely not fair. Or I can talk about, my experiences at school, while on probation, or now while on probation. I say that I wear many hats, or that I do both sides of the law type of deal.
Right.
And it's true. I do. So that kind of gives me perspective that I don't believe a lot of attorneys have. I'll close it out too with, it kind of reminds me, I went through law school, listening to seminars from people talking about what it's like to be charged with a crime. The person's feeling stress, anxiety, all the things that go through your head when you're charged with a crime. I heard my professors talk about it. They called in people to give seminars on it, lectures and all that stuff. But I always equated it to, there's a famous psychological story or philosophy story called The Girl in the Color Blue. And in the story, there's a girl who's raised in a room where there is no color at all. She only sees black and white. While she grows up in the room, she reads everything there is about the color blue. She learns, the origin of the word, how the eye perceives it, everything there is about it. She then one day is released from the room, and she looks up and she sees the sky, and she realizes that everything she knew about the color blue was not the same as what it's like to experience seeing it. It's kind of what I in some way equate my whole experience with. I talk to criminal defense attorneys, and some of them get it, some of them are really good, but they'll never know. Not to their fault. I'm not saying go get arrested and then become a defense attorney, but that is something that I don't know if I will ever meet someone who has a similar experience, for better or for worse. And yeah.
Do you think that you've been treated differently because of the situation that you have gone through and are finally, in finishing up in the next, 9 or 10 months? Do you think that you've been treated differently than other newer attorneys because of this situation? Or do you think it's like people are like, okay, second chance, he's making the best of the situation. He's obviously proving himself as a young, high level attorney, and that's what matters? Or are you seeing any type of blowback, I guess is maybe the right word from other attorneys, so far in the first couple of years?
No, actually, quite the opposite. So when you first asked the question and you asked if I've been treated differently, I was going to ask, by who? In terms of the attorneys, no. If anything, and this is going to sound selfish, but egotistical, they've said it. They're kind of impressed by it, a little bit enamored by it. They think it's admirable that I was able to get through it and still do what I do, all that was going on. So the attorneys themselves have been extremely open-minded. Granted, again, I deal outside of my girlfriend. She's an attorney as well. She is civil law. Outside of her, the people I'm dealing with, or the attorneys I'm talking to about this, they're all criminal defense. So they're not strangers to this type of material.
Right.
If I were to tell, someone outside the world of criminal, or maybe outside the world of criminal defense, even if I told a prosecutor, I don't know how they would react. I kind of am curious, but also not curious enough to kind of test the waters, because I'm like,
Sure.
What difference does it make? I will say, though, on the other side, there's a lot I could say about this. With the probation departments, it's a little bit of a gamble of who you're going to be assigned, right? Who's going to be your probation officer? You could either get a social worker, someone that really cares and is there to make sure you integrate back to society, you keep it up, you do a good job, you become who the court ideally wants you to be while on probation, or you could get a cop. And a cop is there to catch you, violate you on probation, and get you back in. Right. And you have no control over who you're going to get. And I've in total, I've had 4 probation officers. I've had 2 that were cops and 2 that were social workers. The 2 that were social workers make it a breeze while you're on probation. The 2 that were cops, to put it bluntly, they suck. They suck to deal with. They're a headache at every turn. They make it harder as a probationer, and it's already hard enough. It's a whole other topic I could go down. And at the beginning, I had a cop. And at the beginning, I was starting law school. You had to report all this to probation. The minute I told them I got into law school and I was going and all this stuff and why I was going, I wanted to go to criminal defense. They hated me. They were like, well, that's not going to happen. Or, they were just generally difficult at every turn, surely because I told them I'm going to go to law school. I don't know if that has to do with a mantra that they have, or if they've had experiences with other criminal defense attorneys that have not been the best, but they were difficult. Whereas the one that I have a social worker, I have a great one now. She's been great. It's been extremely easy while I've been working. Sometimes I can check in with just a phone call. I don't even have to go, which saves time. So defense attorneys and overall attorneys have not treated me differently. The people on the other side of the law, they have. They definitely have. In both ways. So
now with you going through this and I just kind of want to wrap up this piece, because we do have some more questions, but when you're now dealing with the accused and your clients, I would have to imagine a sense of empathy is really transparent based off of your personal and your past experience. So I would have to imagine that empathy piece that maybe not all criminal attorneys have, or maybe just like any profession, you get jaded after 10, 20, 30 years. So I would imagine that empathy piece really does resonate well with the individuals that you're representing.
Yeah. So 2 things I want to talk about with that question. So first off, yes, I definitely I just came from the jail before this interview to interview a guy who was stuck in Boston, away from his home country. He has no family here at all. And I feel for him. I mean, I've gone to the jail maybe 3 times, but we've only represented him for a week. That's almost 3 times more than I would have gone by now, or any other attorney would have gone by now. Again, just because it takes a lot of time.
Right.
Purely because I empathize with the guy. I empathize and sympathize with the guy. I feel bad for him entirely because he's just stuck here and he has no clue how this goes. He has no clue, not only because he's not from here, it's a whole different process to him, but he legal stuff. A lot of my own siblings, I have 5 siblings. They don't know a lot of this stuff. We all grew up with a dad who did this stuff. So I alluded to it prior. My last year of law school, I did a clinic, a year-long clinic, where I had a supervisor, and I was allowed to represent indigent members of Boston, those that cannot afford representation. And I loved it. That was, obviously, you don't learn a lot at law school because you're just burying your head in a book. You don't learn how to be a lawyer at law school. You learn how to take the bar, maybe, but the practical stuff, you're not really learning. You can write a motion and all that stuff, but I got a lot out of simply just doing. And I told all my clients from the get-go that I empathize with them because I've been there, and they appreciated it. A lot of people are hesitant to take on a student attorney, just because of the title, student attorney, you're learning. They don't want, if they're charged with a crime, they don't want you. But I never got turned away from a client after telling them that I've been through the same thing. And a lot of them greatly appreciated it. Just the openness and kind of understanding to some degree, again, because I am like I said, straight, white, healthy male, no disabilities at all. I had all the resources in the world, and my process sucked, but it was easier for me than it ever was for them. And so I can relate to them, but I'm not going to know fully what it was like. But at least they liked hearing that their attorney had an inkling of it, and they had never heard it. And I tell my clients that now, and they appreciate it as well. So, yeah, I definitely do feel for all my clients just because I haven't been there. And I never want to go back, so I want to help them out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's really something that differentiates you on that personal level and on that professional level that's very unique. And it's, again, this is a very unique conversation. And again, definitely appreciate you hopping on, because I think this conversation and your story is bringing a lot of value to the audience. I know we touched on before, being relatively new and the firm that you joined with Brad Bailey. Can you talk a little bit about how that experience has been being a new attorney, and some of the challenges that you faced, kind of being the new guy on the team, maybe what you have to do in terms of, obviously you have to prove yourself every day for the rest of your life, but like being, one of the new guys on the team, for an established firm. Can you talk about a little bit of the challenges that you've had, stepping into that role and really trying to, establish that strong and impeccable reputation that, that every attorney strives for?
Yeah. So, when I came in, like I said, Brad Bailey is one of the bigger names in Boston. I heard about him prior, while I was at my old job. And so he's very well established, right? He has a career. He's old. I think it's 42 years old. 42 years long career. He's in his mid 60s or so. So that's intimidating in and of itself. I remember quaking in my boots, honestly, when I had the interview. Like I said, because I wasn't supposed to be there. I don't know how I got an interview, but because I was talking to this guy who he knows what he's doing. He has a reputation around him he's known for that. I also worked with this other guy, Dan Riley, who he doesn't have 42 years, but he has, I think, close to 2 decades. And then we have this other woman who's awesome, Lisa Bilowitz. She's like a guru of legal writing. She's our appellate of counsel. And she's a fantastic resource. She's like, I can't say the name of the awards because I don't know them, but she's well renowned for her legal writing across the state. So there's 3 people. That's pretty freaking scary to work with. When I'm coming in with, hi, my name's Pat. I just took the bar and passed. That's all I had. But I told him from the get-go, I was like, look, I don't know what I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to know I know everything, because that's just going to get me in a world of trouble. But what I try to do every day is just, put your head down and put yourself in a situation. If you don't know it, figure it out. If you can't figure it out, learn from it, and then don't repeat it. And that's worked so far. I'm kind of dogged in the sense that I really want to get good at it. And, I have my dad around for pieces of advice always, and I can talk about why I chose to work in Massachusetts instead of working with my dad up in New Hampshire. So I'll always have that outlet, but I really want to learn from Brad. And so I kind of tried to show him hot out the gate, like, hey, I'm here. I'm not trying to F around. I'm here to do this work. And he has, I think he has noticed it. He's a great boss. He's been very receptive about all my work. He knows full well this entire story, and he was incredible to talk to. Not only about my story, but also with the work. He's very open to teaching, which is not something you always find in a boss. Some bosses kind of say, like, what the hell, why do you know that? Brad always takes almost too much time to walk me through it, but I'd rather that. So I kind of just try to, take on the personality of the new guy in full. It's not a secret that I'm the new guy, so why would I try to hide behind it? I just try to learn each time I go in. And that's kind of how I handle it.
So a couple of questions. Take us through, if you don't mind, take us through it like let's call it an average day, and then take us through like what we would like what you would consider by your standards like a hectic day of a day in your life, an average day, and then one where you just you look up at 6:30, 7 o'clock at night and you're like, holy shit, what in the world happened? Like,
yeah.
So maybe take us through like an average day, and then like things really went sideways and I didn't see that coming.
Yeah. So I guess first starting off, I laughed a little bit when you said an average day. There is not really truly an average day with this, and that's part of the reason I liked it. It's not monotonous. You're bouncing around to different courts, different environments all the time. If I were to have an average day, it's probably go to a hearing in the morning, and that can be anywhere from, it starts at 9 a.m. It can go anywhere till like noonish, ideally. And then I'll go back to the office and either, while I'm at court, I'll answer emails and send off texts to other clients or Brad or Dan and stuff like that. Try to keep contact, caught up on other cases. That's all while I'm at court. When I get back from court, I'll try to, if I have any writing I got to do, I'll try to bust that out. Any research I'll try to do. Reviewing discovery, that's like a never-ending project, especially with litigation schedules. We have stuff coming up. You got to review this to then research it and then be able to draft a motion to file on this date and then argue on this date. So it's tight timelines. So there's never not something to do. But you can only do so much in one day. So that's an average day, pretty much. And then a hectic day is we'll do today. We'll do this morning up until noon. I was drafting a motion at, I think, like 7 a.m. that I learned about last night, running over to the courthouse to file it at 9, sat around at the courthouse until, I think, like 12:40. While I'm at the courthouse, I had 2 Zoom hearings in 2 other courts. So I'm like checking in with the court clerk and the prosecutor and be like, hey, I'm here in case the case is called, but I got to hop on the Zoom. And so I go into the side room, my headphones, be like, hi, I'm here. Do that hearing, go back into the courtroom. My case still in the call, go back and do my other hearing on Zoom. Finally, I think the judge saw me running in and out, like, what the hell is this guy doing? He then called my case before lunch, which was a godsend because I thought he wasn't going to call it. And these judges break for lunch for like an hour, hour and a half. So I was like, please, Philip, God, call it. He called my case, said, great, cool. I did everything there, grabbed my briefcase, and I had to literally run over to the jail to meet a client because we needed to get information, on like a timeline of stuff that was going on, because we need to serve subpoenas that I drafted up before this interview and after meeting with him. Keep in mind too, travel times are built into this. I feel like it's kind of overlooked sometimes. I use the train sometimes if it makes a little bit more sense, but even driving in takes longer, honestly, sometimes. But so I would go visit a client, and that can sometimes, between checking in at the jail, getting processed in, walking up, they bring the client out, we talk a little bit, and then he has to leave before I leave. That all takes time, and it builds up. So, and then I would have gone back to court for another case, if I didn't have this, but I've had days where I'm in and out of court while on Zoom court and on the calls, all within maybe like, I don't know, 6 hours, handling, tending to 10 different cases. And that's all the while, we're a small firm fielding new calls for potential new clients. We get email updates. I'm getting them right now while we're on the thing. We get email updates about potential new clients calling, and we have to call them back, and that takes time too. So those are the hectic days, and I was lucky today that the jail I had to go to was local. Some of the jails are not. They're like an hour away, 2 hours, and they're a pain. They're a pain to get into. They're a little bit more, they're a pain to get to and get into. They just take up more time. So those are the hectic days. But honestly, I like those days because it kind of always feels like you're doing something. You're not ever standing idle. My girlfriend, to her credit, puts up with me being attached to my phone a lot more than I thought she would, because I am always on the thing, texting or emailing. I do make it a point to put it down, when we're at certain events on the weekend or at night and stuff like that. But I'm glued to that thing, either getting emails from Brad or sending off my own emails or getting updates from clients, private investigators, all that stuff. So the day is hectic, basically from when I wake up to when I go to bed. I've literally been laying in bed sometimes at 11:40, replying to emails that I just got. It's not like they were sitting there. So it goes on and on and on all day, and it can get pretty hectic, but it's fun. It's rewarding too. So,
well, you brought up something that I want to touch on. It kind of with the hectic day, and you still have to talk to potential new clients. With you saying that your firm is it's not one of the big mega firms with 400 attorneys. So and you being still fresh into the firm. Now, are you giving clients through their marketing systems? Do you have word of mouth referrals? I mean, how are you acquiring clients, and how is that firm acquiring clients to keep the pipeline full?
Yeah. So good question. So this is a thing that I don't know really. I know I looked up your podcast a little bit the other day, and I saw that it's all about firms and how they work. But this is something that we talk about at Brad Bailey Law constantly. I will get my own clients two different ways. So if I got a client yesterday, because if people hear my name, someone gives me their name, or my name's given to them or something like that, they'll call me. That's called a client acquired through non-firm channels, right? They're calling Pat Garrity directly. So that I'll acquire clients that way, and those basically become firm clients as well. It's just how we get them is different. But every case that I have, I reach out to Dan and Brad incessantly, ask them hey, what about this? Again, because I'm the new guy. So they're involved in my cases, I'm involved in theirs. Then we have this other thing called, clients acquired through firm channels. And that's where they contact the marketing department. The marketing department will send us an email, a brief synopsis of it. And then the brief synopsis or after we call them back and field out what the case is, the charge, their criminal history, stuff like that. We offer a tier pricing, and it's kind of beneficial in terms of acquiring new clients, because we have Brad, who is top tier, right? He's been a federal prosecutor, he's been a state prosecutor, he's been a sheriff, he's been a criminal defense attorney, he's been good in all of them. So he costs X amount. We'll play with $100, right? He costs $100. Right. Then there's Dan, who's middle, because again, he's been practicing not nearly as long as Brad, but a lot longer than I am. He'll be like $50, right? And then I will be, I'll come in at like, I don't know, $25. So I get the benefit of the experience, and the client gets a little bit of a less of a surcharge in their representation, and the firm still gets a new client. So everyone kind of wins in that. And we tell the client straight up why they're tiered that way, because here you can take Pat. He doesn't have much experience, but he has us as supervisors. And likewise, with Dan or Brad, not that Brad really needs to tell himself, but Dan can be like, I have Brad as a supervisor, and Pat's going to be doing work on it as well, but I'll be your guy in court that day. I'm going to be your direct point of contact. So that's how we get clients. So we have two different ways, and we have tier pricing. And that kind of opens up a whole lot of avenues, because before, the guy before me had been with Brad nearly as long as Dan. So they really only had like 2 tiers. Now we have 3, and that helps a lot.
Right.
So yeah.
So a question, and this kind of goes back to one of our previous pods. How much do you see, especially because you're working with individuals who have 2 decades up to 4 decades worth of experience? How do you see those individuals and the relationships that they've had for literally decades? How do you see that impacting the potential deals that they're able to negotiate on their clients' behalf, based off of the relationships that they have, if versus a newer attorney? Do you see a big discrepancy in that, or do you see it as the prosecutor looks at the facts of the case and is very very cut and dry about it and says, okay, I may not have a relationship with this attorney versus somebody I've dealt with for 20 years, for example? Can you take us down that road a little bit of what you've seen in terms of you're paying top tier prices, you're going to be expecting something something a little bit more, so to speak, and that's not to denigrate like the next level and the next level based on,
yeah.
But just if you could just kind of touch on that a little bit.
So yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah. No worries.
So there's a couple of avenues I can go with answering this. There is a sector of clients that we get that think that because they're paying top dollar, that there's some magic wand that's going to be waved and get rid of their criminal allegations. That is, I know I touched a little bit on before with, you can see the discrepancy between quote unquote poor and quote unquote rich getting different defenses. Again, that has to do with the time dedicated to them. But in terms of what's going to happen when we negotiate it, you're not going to be able to buy a prosecutor. You're not going to buy a judge who's going to be like, who's going to look at the same set of facts, but because you paid top dollar, they're going to be like, oh, well, these are different facts then. No, they're still the same. It's black and white. What happened. In terms of Brad or Dan's relationship with prosecutors versus mine, it depends. I mean, this is like any other job. If Brad has been able to work with a prosecutor in the past, he's probably better off talking to them, getting a deal. But we've been milking this a lot lately. I went to a law school directly in downtown Boston, Suffolk Law School. That's like a pretty well-known local school, because it turns out a lot of people So the alumni network is pretty huge. Brad has a case where, the client paid Brad. Brad is his attorney. Brad has been sending me to the court because I went to school with the judge. I went to school with all the prosecutors, and I've been able to make things happen that Brad necessarily probably would not have, because I have that personal relationship with the prosecutors, and the judge was an old professor of mine. So, there is that rapport that kind of goes a long way, and the client's well aware of why we're doing this. And it has been working. But then there's the other way, where Brad has sent me to court and the prosecutor can be older, I don't know him at all, but once I see whatever I'm filing, it says, it mentions Brad Bailey law at some point. They'll see that, or I'll just straight up say, "Hi, I'm Patrick Garrity. I'm Brad Bailey's associate." I can see their demeanor change because they know Brad. I've seen it with judges too. And so I haven't seen firsthand someone treat me differently because I'm the new guy. But we have seen how relationships with the prosecutors and the judges affects some of the outcomes, to be honest with you. And I've also seen, we call it, some of these prosecutors, quote unquote, true believers, where they read the police report, and not to go down the rabbit hole, police report gets wrong a lot. But they'll read the police report, or they'll see the charge, and they'll say, "This is what happened. We're not wavering at all. Like, we're going to go hard into this." And they're just unworkable. And that kind of creates a hassle. But then suddenly at like the 11th hour before trial, to become pretty workable because they don't want to do the trial. So I mean, the relationships with the judges and the prosecutors definitely affects things, but I haven't seen anything in terms of, since Brad's been practicing for X years, that I can't do. So then remains to be seen. I only started with Brad in, January.
All right. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, yes, yeah, no, incredible answer. So and very, very appreciative of your time, and we're kind of pushing up on it. And I want to kind of wrap things up with, and again, can't thank you enough for the openness that you brought to the discussion and to the pod. And I really do think it will shed some light, for our audience. To wrap it up, if you don't mind, like, it's kind of like a corny interview question, job interview, but like, in terms of your own personal goals, where are you looking at in terms of, where you want to be, as a criminal defense attorney, the next, 2 years, 5 years down the road? Like, what kind of plan do you have, like, on a personal level, that you're kind of laying out and looking to implement, as time goes by, and as when you're talking about your day where you look up and it's 6:30. I mean, these times are flying by. Before we know it, April will be over, then it'll be August and September, and we're like, wait a minute, where did 2024 go? So what kind of personal career plan are you kind of looking at, as we kind of tie up everything and finish this episode up?
So career plan wise, I want to be doing this. I can't see myself doing any other job. I really can't. I can't see myself doing any other type of law. So I just don't think I would care. I can care about doing this. I can wake up and, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear in this, but I can give a shit about going to work.
I'm out of 2 curse words. Yes.
All right.
Not a problem.
That's my career goal, is to do this as long as I can. I want to do federal stuff. I'm on the federal list. I don't know how to phrase this. I appear in federal cases in Massachusetts, but I'm not on what's called a CJA list. That would be really cool to get to, but you need to practice for 5 years and build up to that. So that's one goal I have. A personal goal is, I really, really want to do a case with my dad. I think that would be awesome. My dad drives me up a wall, but he is without a doubt my role model, in every way, career wise and personal wise. He's been great. So I would love to do a trial with him. I think it'd be so cool. He's a little bit older too. I think he's like 62 or something like that. So I mean, I have a brother who's in college, and my dad's waiting the clock out. Once my brother graduates, he said he's like in a jail cell. He can't get out until my brother graduates. But I don't really ever see him truly retiring. He talks about it every now and then, but I think he'd get bored. So I want to do one before he definitely does clock out. And that's like that right now is like my main goal. That would be really cool. What's impeding that is, I'm waiting on a New Hampshire bar to approve my application. I applied in January. I'm told I'll get admitted in like June, which is wild. But so I really want to do a case with him, and I just want to get better at doing all this stuff. I make mistakes all the time in court. I don't think I'm ever gonna not make mistakes, but I want to minimize. So my goal is to just keep my head down, get better at it, and learn what I can, and not repeat mistakes. And personally wise too, I want to start a family and have all that stuff going on, and not have work be all consuming. But I want to learn how to balance that and get that going. So yeah.
No, outstanding. So as we're wrapping up, if you don't mind, telling our audience how they can reach you, website, email, phone number. So please share that information so that if they are, wanting to speak with you in Massachusetts and then potentially in a couple of months in New Hampshire, because we do go, this is coast to coast. So just go ahead and just, if you wouldn't mind, just sharing a little bit of your information, your contact information, how we can reach you.
So I can be reached. The best bet is to send me an email at patrick@bradbaileylaw, BAILEY.com. And you can also go on our website, bradbaileylaw.com. And that has, some other avenues of contact, either through, we have a little chat bot type thing, or there's a couple of phone numbers, fax numbers on there. But my direct email, patrick@bradbaileylaw.com. I'll be the one replying to you, and I will get back to you probably within an hour tops. Like I said, I'm glued to my phone, so feel free to reach out if you have any questions. More than happy to talk.
Okay, perfect. Well, that concludes another episode of the Next Level Law podcast. Again, sponsored by Vertical 10. Please visit vertical10.com for all of your digital marketing needs, exclusively designed for attorneys. So SEO, Google, Facebook, Instagram. Vertical 10 provides all of those services exclusively for attorneys. Be very happy to speak with you. Very blessed to have Mr. Garrity on with us today. Incredible story, incredible journey of overcoming adversity, and here we are today. In a highly successful firm. Working his way up without question. So Patrick, very, very grateful that you hopped on. We'd definitely love to have you on again, down the road in a few months, kind of check in, see how the career progress is going. If that's something that you would be open to, because we've really enjoyed the question. And I think the audience be able to really pull a lot from this past hour.
Yeah, no, I'd be more than happy to return. I appreciate you having me on at all. And talk soon.
Okay, perfect.
That's a wrap for this week's episode of the Next Level Law Podcast with your hosts, Arash Eskandari and Richard Perillo. We hope you discovered some game-changing takeaways to implement immediately for leveraging your law firm growth. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a review and rating on your preferred platform to help get the word out. You can also visit vertical10.com to access free law firm growth resources and a free copy of Arash's book, The Law Firm Marketing Blueprint. Finally, remember to join Arash and Richard next time as they continue revealing their best strategies for taking your firm to the next level. Until then, here's to your success.